So hello everybody, Turbo Weekend Radio November edition, and I'm very happy at this time to have no other than Teddy Spaghetti from Turbo Weekend Atlanta and Dixie Darkness with me. We go way back, I think, Teddy. We go some 20, almost 20 years back, talking about the old forum. Discussion board for Turbo Weekends back in the day where we got to know each other. We've never met in person. And I think this is actually the first time I see you on a Zoom call, even.
That all sounds correct. Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself. Teddy Spaghetti is your warrior name, but you're also publicly known as Teddy Spaghetti. What? Tell me about your Jugend. How did you get to join a Jugend back then in the years, and how was the last 20 years for you?
It's funny, when I was living in the New York City area, and this would have been, 20 years ago, I was fascinated by the Jugend because everything looked so cool. And I was on the message board. And then we always talked about making a chapter, but I think you had to buy 3 jackets at the time for them to make a chapter jacket. And me and my friends could never find like a third person who wanted to spend that much money for the jacket. So we never officially got jackets in New Jersey. And I guess it was no social media, so I never connected with the other guys in New Jersey who are there now. But when I moved to Atlanta, I had a Turbo Jugend Hoboken shirt that we made. There's the town I lived in, and I'd gone to the Star Bar with my now wife. No, yeah, I went to the Star Bar. No, that's not right. Went to see Valiant Thor and Fu Manchu with my wife, and we met Gary Yoxon and his wife Mika, who then later invited us to join the Atlanta chapter, which is,
Okay.
many years.
You saw that jeans jacket and walked up to them because you knew it and
It's actually even
connection.
funnier. My wife's Japanese and his wife is Japanese, and they were both standing in line to use the toilet. Started talking to each other. She had her jacket on, and then she was like, "Oh, come back and meet my husband. My fiance. He's the vice president of Turbo Jugend Atlanta." And it's just gone from there.
Okay. Well, so see, because sometimes when I'm back in Vienna, my hometown, I get to meet all the Jugends, but some of them would never or not wear even at concerts, their kutjani or anymore. And I don't know. I wouldn't. It bewilders me because as you were pointing out, good things happen from it. People walk up to you and eventually it could end up in a chapter.
It's funny that you say that. We've been many places where we've met people who said, "I'm in the chapter, but I don't have my jacket on." We were in Naples, Italy, walking down the street, and a guy came running out of his store and said, "I'm in Turbo Jugend Naples. Meet me here in an hour. We'll go get drinks and then go see some bands play."
Because you were wearing the kuta, right?
Yeah.
See, that always helps.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to me in where was that? In Gothenburg, Sweden. I was getting a hot dog, and all of a sudden there were 2 vegans from Gothenburg standing in line in front of me. So that sure is a good way of connecting.
I met Omar from Turbo Jugend Vegas. I was at a festival, and we just walked past each other, like at the festival, and we're like, "Hey, I'm Ted. I'm Omar. Where are you from?" "I'm from here." Like, "Let's go get beers." And we're friends ever since.
Yeah, so this is exactly the way it happens. So that's the first lesson from this podcast. Wear your jacket, keep your eyes open, and talk to people. Maybe for some older Jugends or younger Jugends, get social, even in desperate times like this. But the reason I wanted you on a podcast is mainly your record label. Maybe tell the audience about your record label and how this everything came together.
So I started Spaghetty Town Records, I think in 2014 or 2015. I think the first record came out in 2015. And it's actually even Jugend related still. We were in Lima hanging out with the Turbo Jugend Lima people, and they were playing us this band Motosierra, who's from Uruguay. And I was like, "This band is incredible." I was like, "How have I never heard of this band? Why, they're just a killer action rock band." And when I got home, I was like, "Someone has to release this in the United States and try to bring them, over to America." So, and those dudes were on, I didn't know this at the time, but later found out they were on the Alpha Motherfuckers
Mhm.
tribute album, and they are also in Turbojugend. I think it's Montevideo, the capital city of Uruguay. So it does actually come full circle. So that was the first release we put out.
So that's and you got to know the band from Uruguay, Motosierra, and then you set up your own. You just started your own label because of this band because you wanted to promote them.
Yeah, I started messaging the singer and was just like, "Have you, are you releasing anything? Are you putting anything out?" And he was like, "Maybe, we're thinking about it." And then eventually he's like, "Yeah, we're going in the studio." And I was like, "I very much want to release this in the United States. What do we have to do?"
Yeah. Have you had any prior expertise in the pressing records? Were you in bands? So did you know how to do it, or was it just did you start off from scratch?
I am a terrible, terrible musician. So I've definitely never been in. I've tried to learn instruments. It's just I don't have I don't know, patience or just natural abilities. So that didn't work for me. Always been a crazy music fan, but I did work when I was younger at two radio stations, and later at a major record label. So I had some idea, more clue than your average person. And I did work at a publicity company, so I knew a little bit, but the early days is definitely it was a lot of learning curve and things I would have done, you may have done differently.
Okay, so you got one band on. How was the how was Motosierra received, and how did it really work out? When was that, by the way? What
I
year?
think that was 2015. We did a 7-inch single,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was really well received. There was a lot of people just like, yeah, same kind of response, like, who the hell is this band, and why have I never heard of them? I think the biggest struggle for me with that release was they don't play the U.S. or not in the U.S. and their songs are in Spanish, which some people have. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but some people have a harder time if it's not in their native language.
Okay, so did you manage to get them over for a tour then, following the release?
No, we haven't. It's incredibly expensive. I thought it would be cheaper because I'm thinking United States and Latin America, it would be a low cost.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly expensive.
To fly there.
Oh yeah, and it's also tough for bands to come to the U.S. Like you want to make it as worthwhile since you're spending so much money, but the United States is so big.
Oh yeah.
There's so many cities you should play, and I think it's unless you can commit a month, it's very difficult. To
Mm-hmm.
play a lot of shows.
Okay, but so you started up with this one band. What did follow? How was how did you continue the whole thing, the whole gig?
Then actually also Yugen related is I got an email from a guy who was like, "Hey, I'm in this band called The Sweet Things. Like, we understand you have a label. We'd like to send you like our demos." And the more I looked into it, I was like, two of those dudes are in Turbo Yugen, New York City, Sam and Dave. And I thought the songs were great, and that became our second release was that single.
So the Jugend, being part of the Jugend immediately helped.
Oh yeah, what's funny is I knew those guys and I'd met them before. And I don't know if I knew they were in a band. I mean, they looked like they were in a band, but I don't think I knew they were in a band. But when I got the demos, I was like, these songs are awesome. Like, I'd love to release this.
Okay, cool. So this was exactly one question I wanted to ask you. How does Jugend being in the Jugend being in this whole network really help? But obviously it did, because the first two bands were actually in Jugend.
Yeah.
Does this trend still continue? Is the Jugend network still helping you getting new bands? Let's say from releases from overseas. Would you do stuff like for a European or Australian or I don't know, African, Asian band? Would you do that? Is that a springboard for Jugend related bands from other continents?
It definitely helps because you have this built-in fan base of crazy music fans. Like, dudes in Turbo Jugend are usually really into music. We're usually into a lot of the same bands. We share a lot of the same interests. It's funny, my release I did like maybe 2 months ago was a split 7-inch, and it had the Strip, who are from Australia, who are in Turbo Jugend, Melbourne.
Mm-hmm. I had them on a podcast once as a cream puff. So yeah, they are awesome. But is that the type of music? This is it contemporary rock and roll with a scent of the 70s, 80s? Is that the type of music you would always feature, or what styles of music does your label feature?
So we started off doing like action rock with Motosierra, and then more, yeah, contemporary rock and roll with Sweet Things. But it's funny, like, because some people are like, what do you know, like what kind of music are you listening? Do you like? And I was like, well, if you listen to the label, follow the label, and you'll see like that's exactly what I like. So there's some power pop releases, some punk rock releases, some action rock, some bava rock records. So it's a little bit of everything, but it's all guitar driven music. Like that's, we're fans. I'm a fan of guitar rock. We'd like to see more people listening and buying and getting into guitar rock music again. It's just, not as popular as it once was.
Exactly. This is one big problem of, I would say, for like that the music genre itself, that most of the young people don't listen to it anymore. So they have to, there's a certain task or duty to keep it somehow alive. And with your record label, you're basically doing it. Looking at thinking about Jugends, is it how can you tell me how can Jugends get in touch with you, or to maybe get a deal with you getting released in the US? Is that a way you would like to promote here?
Yeah, I mean, email is always the best. And I say email because if you message me on Facebook and we're not friends, it goes into that other folder that you forget to check. If you message the business, like the label Facebook page, it doesn't pop up. It goes into, again, another folder. It's weird.
I know. I've had that. Yeah.
It's super frustrating. And people who message me on Instagram, it just goes into into the wild. So email is always the best. If you can go to my Facebook or my Instagram, my email address is there, and because then I can kind of put it, look at it, go back to it, and then send a SoundCloud link.
Yeah,
not like a folder where I have to download everything to then stream it. Just let me stream it.
Okay, or Bandcamp, some stuff like that.
Yeah, Bandcamp. Yeah. Tell us a little about yourself. I genuinely try to listen to every single demo because there may be something really cool that I don't know about.
How many are you getting a week demos?
I probably get 5 a week.
Okay.
Probably 5 a week. Especially now in the last year, since not as many bands have been playing live, they've been recording and writing. So a ton of people have just new music out there that they are itching to release and tour to support.
Yeah, I mean, this was one thing I wanted to ask you. I'm not a big fan of talking about that new virus because we hear it all the time anyway. But still, I wanted to ask you, how do you think the last 1.5 years have impacted your label? Obviously, bands, as you were mentioning, are not playing right now, not playing live, which should give them more time to produce new music. Talk about Turbo Negro. On the other hand, they're not playing live, so people cannot follow them, which usually I would say boosts record sales. What's your take on that?
So the first 6 months were really tough because, I mean, again, no one knew what was going on. No one knew what was happening. No one was getting together. Like, we put out 2 records in the first 6 months, and it was only because like they'd been planned to come out. Like, that's the only reason. And then afterwards, no one can tour for it. No one can support. No one can play shows. So like we have a built-in base that buys records every time, but you're looking to grow the base and reach new people. So not being able to tour, it's harder to reach new people. And then I'd say like the next 6 months is when bands started trying to safely get together and record, practice, because no one knew. Yeah, we didn't know what was happening, and they're like, well, maybe in 6 months from now we'll be playing shows. So then everyone started recording, or bands that had like, one band I work with was going to do like a 4-song EP, and they were like, well, we were going to tour. We can't tour. So let's just record 8 more songs and we'll make an album. And then when the album comes out, hopefully we can tour for that. And that'll be out next year. Lately, bands in the States, people have started playing shows again, slowly.
Yeah.
So it's starting to happen, and I guess we'll have to see what happens in the new year.
Yeah. What overall would you say it's a more of a negative impact on the whole thing, or do people buy more records because first of all they can't go out, they can't drink, they cannot go on vacation as much, so they have a shitload of money there. Okay, so what am I doing? Okay, I'm gonna spend it on records. I'm gonna be building up a record
Yeah,
collection.
I'm home all the time. Well, what
Yeah.
do I want to do? I'll play some records. There was a lot of yeah, we just had a sale for the first 6 months because we're like, you're staying at, yeah, we know you're stuck at home, I'm stuck at home. Here's an incentive to buy some records.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm home, I can do all the mail order, I can crank things out. Um, so that was kind of the positives. People were buying records, they were getting government assistance and buying records. And now we're seeing the downside of everyone kind of is aware of this, of the delays in record pressings.
Oh yeah.
Before in Europe, it would be 3-4 months for a pressing, and now it's 6 to 9 months, sometimes a year, because everyone recorded, everyone wrote an album, and now everyone's trying to put it out at the same time.
So there's too much of a queue it's not let's say vinyl as a not vinyl as a material, but the queue for the pressings, right?
Yeah, everyone can. Yeah, like a plant can take on a certain amount of releases, and that's just gone through the roof. A lot of plants aren't even taking new pressings because they're so delayed. There was stuff we would have had in like May or June that we're just starting to see now. So that's been the downside, is vinyl's just very, very delayed internationally.
Yeah, but as you're mentioning, you're focusing solely on vinyl, or mostly, or do you also do cassettes or CDs?
We've done CDs, and CDs are cheap, and you can have them produced in a week. And we sell some CDs. I've never done a cassettes, I mean, partly because I don't even have a cassette player.
Yeah.
But some cassettes are cheap and easy to do. If I pressed 100 CDs, I'll usually, sell 30 CDs, weirdly.
No, so not enough. Only a third of them. I mean,
enough to pay for it.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that producing CDs is cool and everything, but eventually, not too many people buy it.
Yeah, and I still prefer vinyl. I just want to do vinyl all the time.
Yeah, that's a big boom, as I know. Vinyl has obviously, which is not big news, outsold CDs for years now.
Yeah.
So the whole thing turned around for years. It's been turning around for years, and people are. I would think people are getting their record, especially during the last 1.5 years. People are buying the old hi-fi towers again, and going through eBay and setting up. We're buying new ones to be, because they're home all the time anyway. So that why don't you just spin a record?
There was that period where everyone was just buying those really cheap record players, like the $50 Crosley record player, and I think now they're since they're invested in vinyl, they're like, well, I'm going to buy nicer speakers, I'll get a nicer amp, I'll get a better turntable.
So why don't you cannot do, obviously you cannot invest in 500 records and have a shitty record player. That doesn't make too much sense, right?
Yeah, it would have those like tiny little speakers. It sounded like he was playing through a tin can.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes your Urban Outfitters and stuff like that, they have cheap stuff, but obviously, but I'm lucky. But talking about myself for a minute, I still own my first hi-fi tower that my father bought in the 17th, where I put on my first. I was standing on a chair, just setting up my children music, whatnot. I still have it. It's just right behind me at this moment. I still have this one.
I still have my parents' stereo from the early 80s, and the amp died like 6 months ago, and I had like a month where I just couldn't figure out what to do. It was a dark time. I couldn't figure out what to do, and I hadn't bought an amp in 30 years, and a friend of mine gave me one that he had, and it's actually a really nice amp. I was very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, that's very cool if you have it. I gave it to a 75-year-old guy who was able to repair it or go through it and check on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, there's a ton of really cool stuff out there.
Yeah, cool. But going back to Turbojugend, so you are a member of Turbojugend Atlanta and Dixie Darkness, right?
Yes.
So tell me about Dixie Darkness. I always wanted to talk Gary about it, but since he's not here at the moment, what is Dixie Darkness? It was one of the first pan state Jugend, so to say.
It was meant to be a Southern United States party chapter.
Hmm.
That was the whole idea. It was just like we're a bunch of people who get together and we just want to party. Like that's the whole reason the chapter exists. And then I know Panda got in it, and we were like, "But you're not in the Southern United States." And he's like, "I'm even more Southern because I'm in Mexico."
Yeah.
So that was it. And all I mean, just another excuse to get another jacket.
Exactly, Panda does that all the time. I mean, he set up Satanic and everything. So, but what states are in Dixie Darkness? It's Alabama, basically. I would say.
It's mostly people in Georgia. I feel like we had some people in Tennessee,
Hmm.
and it's not that many people. It's like maybe 10 people, 15 people, and then I think Juan and Iggy. I think that's
Okay.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's it. That's a good crowd. It still exists, I suppose.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not like we don't do anything, but I mean,
Yeah, we're
we're
growing up.
it's the same group of guys. I mean, I think most of the people in Dixie Darkness are in Atlanta.
Anyway, so you could have just called it Georgia, right? Because there is a YouTube in Atlanta, right?
It's funny, the funny, not funny. The Outlaw Motorcycle Club in Georgia, we had a meeting with many years ago, and they specifically told us you can have Atlanta, but you can't put Georgia on your rockers, and we happily agreed.
Oh yeah. Well, were you meeting in a sober state? I'm hoping.
It wasn't me. I mean, this was maybe 15 years ago. There was some confusion when they saw us out in the jackets. So there was a meeting. I understand it was very cordial, like there was no problems, but it was just like we understand what you are. You can't put Georgia on your rockers.
Okay, yeah. This is the well, I did a podcast once with Toby versus MC's motorcycle clubs, which is a big topic and thing in the US, not
Sure.
maybe not in Europe or other parts of the world, but obviously I think you should really have an eye on and be smart about it, right?
Yeah, be aware and be smart.
Yeah, I'm jumping back to your label and the bands that you're currently featuring. What is the newest acquisition of your label, and what is there any band you would recommend for Jürgens during those dark days and nights you would like to recommend?
Well, of course, Motosierra because they're incredible. They deserve more recognition. They are in their Yugen guys. We just put out Killer Hearts. Oh,
Mhm.
and I just got Bitch Queens too, which are other Yugen dudes in Switzerland.
Oh yeah. So you are
Yeah,
doing Bitch Queens for the US. Okay, cool.
yeah. So they do Europe, and I just kind of cover North America,
Hmm.
which works out perfect. But yeah, Killer Hearts record rules. Kill the kick-ass guitar rock, and Bitch Queens are awesome action rock band.
Yeah, I mean, pitch points are pretty. I would think that especially in Europe, pitch points are really well known since they played on Jugend parties and well to be Jugendtage. I think if I'm probably getting this right.
I
Yeah,
think they did.
yeah. So they're pretty big in the True Jugend universe. But the Killer Hearts are from Houston, Texas, right? They are
Yeah,
U.S.
correct.
based.
Yes.
I just got to know them via our previous pre-podcast conversation, and I think, oh my God, I'll be featuring them. I'll be getting back to the Killer Hearts with in the Green Puff. Just finishing which I always do. I'm always putting some music on at the end of the podcast, and I'm gonna be picking the Killer Hearts for sure. So is this a band you think the Killer Hearts openly asking you? Is that a band that is really on the rise and can really be as big as they sound at the moment? Is that a
They just put
perspective?
out their album, their
Mm-hmm.
debut album, and it's been really well received. They also were able to tour, and they came back from tour where they had money, they made money, which was incredible. And you rarely hear that you came home with money. They sold a ton of shirts and records.
Mm-hmm.
They actually did a date with Todd from Pittsburgh in the Cheats, and
Mm-hmm.
it was an awesome show. So they're planning to just keep on hitting the road. They're a bunch of guys who are want to be on the road, want to play shows, and they're at the end of the day are saving money to try to come to Europe.
Oh, that's good news. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've been dying to get some international stuff over there with, I think, Grindhouse. You're probably familiar with Grindhouse.
Oh yeah, in Australia.
Well, yeah, they should be coming to Europe next year, and I hope that Kilohertz are also they're also finding a way. So all of you Jugends out there listening to this, if you, keep most of them have connections to bars and places that live venues, I would think. So keep your.
I know they've been in touch with the guys in Dead Furies, and then other bands. Actually, German bands. Someone else in Germany. So yeah, they'll definitely be coming through your neck of the woods at least.
Yeah, I mean, especially with young bands, the True Jugend network really helps connecting them to venues and places. And if the local Jugens show up, it always helps, because it should give them, if there's a decent following, should give them at least 20 more people, 30, 50 more people if it's a really big town or an epicenter of Jugens. And this really helps the bands. Usually, those who show up, they understand the need of transferring some of their more or less well-earned money to the bands, and so they buy records and merch. So I would just give a shout out to the Jugens out there, just to keep their ears.
Jugend is such a great base of just like fans of rock music.
Yeah,
they're super passionate, so it's works good for me.
Yeah,
good for bands.
Of course. So cool, Teddy. Thank you for your time. Thank you for checking in with the True Jugend Radio. I will be seeing you, and this is a if they let me fly into the US next year. We'll be meeting next early summer.
Oh, awesome!
So which is gonna be cool in Atlanta. So there might be another podcast with Teddy Spaghetty. For in the time being, thank you so much for taking your time featuring the band. One last thing. So you were mentioning your email that young bands can reach you. Maybe just announce it, and I'll be posting it below the podcast. So
wow. So
there's some
that's spaghettytown@gmail.com, and spaghetti has a Y instead of an I.
Okay, I'll be posting that below the podcast, so people can really look it up on the True Jugend Radio Facebook page. So you can just copy paste it.
Yes, copy and paste.
All right, Teddy. Thank you so much. Have a nice eve, and I talk to you later.
Cool. Have a good one.
Presented by.
It's always nice talking to some fellow True Jugend members, which have been known for years and somehow disappear, and then they appear again. In this case, Teddy Spaghetty with an awesome project that Spaghetty Records label that he's put out. So that's a pure joy actually to talk to him and getting to know his whereabouts with the label. Before we go to the cream puff, let me do some housekeeping. Have not been too active on housekeeping that lately. No, I'm not cleaning my apartment semi-nude. No, I'm talking about True Jugend Radio. We're still, this is the 85th episode of the podcast. And once again, I would like to invite everybody who's listening to join True Jugend Radio. If you have a good idea or anything you want to talk about, any senseful stuff that you would like to talk about with me, just hit me up on the Facebook. Use my Cebesta, Sängerknaben Wien. That's my True Jugend account. Just hit me up on the Facebook or go to the Facebook group of True Jugend Radio. I'm there. Just punch in True Jugend Radio and you'll find a 1,000 member full group of enthusiasts of True Jugend Radio. If you want to join that group, no problem. Hit me up. I'll be getting you into that group. And if you have something to write about or have any ideas for the podcast, go ahead and just do it. We'll be happy to put you on the podcast. I'll be happy to talk to you. If you guys out there want to join True Jugend Radio, we've had several co-hosts during all those years. Since I'm going into my almost 8th year now, I think, of True Jugend Radio. We've had quite a slew of co-hosts that have been hosting episodes or parts of episodes. If you feel like contributing, you're more than invited. Only thing necessary, I guess, is having some sort of an idea of the English language. That makes it easier for all of us to understand what native speakers are talking about. So yeah, English would be cool. Native English speaker even better, since I'm not. And I would like to improve the whole program. I'm also happy to really get everybody on who has some sort of idea how to do radio, or if you want to try out radio or just talk crap like I do, just hop on. No big problem. Just hit me up. One other thing is that Patreon account. I do have some costs hosting that podcast. If you want to support a little bit, you can support us with $1 a month would be helpful. Just hit on the patreon.com/truebeginradio if you want to contribute. If not, it's more than okay. Really, I'm totally fine with that as well. Just promote the podcast if you like it. If not, hit me up and tell me how shitty you think it is, and I can only improve by criticism. That's what I was taught, and that's what I'm trying to get across here. All right, so that was the housekeeping. Maybe one last piece of information. Check out the various Facebook groups of the Trubejugend. There's a big one called Facebook/Trubejugend. They have lots of information about concerts. I haven't been seeing too much lately, mainly because of the developments of that virus that keeps it hard for everyone. But if you have any parties or if any concerts are taking place somehow Jugend related, you just might as well join that Facebook group, Trubejugend, and post it there. I'd be happy to see more music and more events on there. Or you use your local Facebook or whatnot listenings as well. So just keep people informed that Trubejugend is still alive, still out there, and still planning on doing stuff. This is, I think, one really important thing these days, not to lock yourself in and play dead, but go out there, with a sensitive way, reasonably, but still keep that whole Trubejugend movement active. Talk to people, do some patch trading, do some other podcasts. I don't know, do some Zoom meetings, whatnot. But please keep the Jugend alive, even though our main band, True Negro, is not playing as much, or has not been playing as much this year. Maybe that's going to be changing next year. But in the meantime, support True Jugend. It's a good and cool thing. As I just found out talking to Teddy Spaghetty after riding with him for some 20 years almost. Yeah. So cool. That's it. I'll be finishing up the podcast with a cream puff, and to nobody's surprise, I picked it's actually a favorite band. I've been listening to for them for the last 2 weeks, and I introduced them into my personal universe. We talked about it with Teddy, and the band is called Killer Hearts. They are based in Houston, Texas. And they just released their first real album in September of this year. It's called Skin Tight Electric. It's really, really good. High energy rock and roll, as they call it. Is it action rock and roll? Yeah, probably. For me, I'm not an expert on that, but if I could mingle Kill Cheerleader or mixed Kill Cheerleader from Toronto. They are not existing anymore. But if I would mix them up with the Dead Boys, 70s punk band, probably the Killer Hearts would result. And this is exactly the reason why I'm bringing you those guys. They're awesome. Get their new record as long as you can, because I'm learning that at least the red vinyl has been sold out, and I think they go fast. So really check your record stores. Check Teddy Spaghetty Records in the US, and there's also one distributor from Estonia. I'll be posting that below the podcast if you want to get your copy of Skin Tight Electric. And one song I've picked because I think it's the best one. All of them are really good, but if I had to choose one, I had to pick one. It's called Good Time Motherfucker. And since it's bad lyrics and a cool song and has even some piano playing at the end, This is exactly what I choose to present you as a cream puff of November. Skin Tight Electric, that's the album. Killer Hearts, that's the band, and the song is called Good Time Motherfucker.